DC News Now Weather presents 2024, the Year in Weather.
Hi everyone, welcome to the DC News Now Weather Special 2024, the Year in Weather. I'm your host, Chief Meteorologist Janessa Webb. This year across the DMV, we saw winter storms, a rare tornado outbreak, destructive tropical cyclones, and a once-in-a-decade solar eclipse. Without a doubt, weather made an unforgettable statement, but we start with one of the biggest events of the year that ended a record 700-plus day snowless streak.
Been so long. We're all, I think, DC as a whole, like Northern Virginia, the DMV, everyone was just kind of waiting for that next snowstorm.
And that's exactly what we got.
Yeah.
After what was a mild start to the winter season, things shifted from a quiet weather pattern to tracking our first significant winter event of the year.
We're also seeing some of the weather patterns change in certain parts of the DMV as well. We have team coverage with our Chief Meteorologist, Janessa Webb. She is in studio this morning at the Weather Center. Also, our meteorologist, Jackie Lear, also standing by as well. We're going to start off with Janessa, though, to see how the conditions are looking and what she's seeing right now in parts of the area.
Mid-January arrived with colder temperatures and parts of the DMV prepared for their first significant snowfall since 2022.
As Martin Luther King Day approached, a stormy pattern began to take shape. Initially, forecasts predicted minimal snowfall, but clarity emerged indicating we could expect at least 4 to 5 inches, along with bitterly cold temperatures. The urgency to prepare quickly set in.
That was the first time we had measurable snow in a very long time.
VDOT of Northern Virginia had 2,000 plows ready to pre-treat the roads, along with 700 trucks on standby to respond overnight once the snow transitioned to ice.
If we can, we're going to pre-treat because that will help us, at least for the first couple hours of the storm, and get out ahead of it.
All of the ingredients lined up to give us the perfect recipe for a snow event. Totals came in with 3 to 5 inches around DC, 1 to 2 inches in southern Maryland, and 6 to 7 inches closer to the mountains. Getting the roads clear after a holiday weekend was vital.
We knew early and often that we really had to get in behind that storm and really start clearing things as quickly as we could.
After a brief reprieve, another storm rolled in, bringing additional snowfall just in time for the weekend.
This second burst of snow fell on Friday the 19th and added up to another 6 inches on top of what fell earlier in the week.
The main difference with the second system was this disturbance was a little bit stronger.
For some, it was a complete mess.
If you don't have to be out in this, stay home.
While for others that follow DC snowball fights, it was long awaited.
There were several hundred people who came, so that was a bigger event. People had more time, they had more notice. It was, kind of late afternoon, early evening.
A brief burst of bitter cold followed, keeping the DMV covered in white. The following week, temperatures spiked and all of the snow melted away quickly. While it was far from another snowmageddon, the first measurable snowfall in over 2 years for parts of the DMV will be one to remember.
Probably gonna do snow angels, snowball fights, maybe build a fort.
Our next notable moment hit mid-spring, producing a lot of buzz and excitement. It was the optical phenomenon of the year, the total solar eclipse across North America 2024. People in parts of the country experiencing total darkness, others seeing a partial eclipse. But what exactly is the difference? Meteorologist Brittany Ward has the details.
Yeah, that's right, Janessa. When we have an eclipse, we need 3 main ingredients. So what exactly are those ingredients? Well, first, we need the sun. We also need the moon, and of course, we need the Earth's surface. So what happens is the moon begins to inch its way in between the Earth and the sun. And as it's doing that, it casts a localized shadow here on the surface. And when looking up at the eclipse, the moon is actually blocking the sun, giving us a spectacular view.
With the next solar eclipse set to be visible only in Alaska in 2033 and across the rest of North America in 2044, our team ventured out to the Washington Monument to capture the moment.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Eclipse 2024, a DC News Now special. I'm Chris Flanagan.
And I'm Chief Meteorologist Janessa Webb. It was a lively celebration across the DMV with festivities of all kinds taking place.
The party is rocking here. It's not just a watch party, it's a real party too. We've got awesome speakers, professors, students here, expecting about 1,500 people.
Our Max Marcilla also at a watch party. He is in Northern Virginia right now in Chantilly. And Max, quite a party out there as well.
Oh, it totally is. And hey there, Chris and Janessa, and happy Eclipse Day. The mood out here in Chantilly is sort of a little bit of a combination between a picnic and a fashion show.
On this historic day, we had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Jawin to gain insight into what made this eclipse so different from previous ones experienced across the country.
This is the first time that I have an eclipse right in my backyard here. These are a pretty unusual phenomenon to happen in places that humans live. Most eclipses happen over the ocean or in places that are not really inhabitable.
With the next event not scheduled for another 20 years, thousands of people across the country were determined to do whatever it took to seize the moment.
Come Monday, I will be looking at the weather and find us a good spot. And I know that when we drive into that spot, people are going to have telescopes set up and we're going to talk to everyone, and it's just going to be a great time. But yes, we are eclipse chasers.
And it was quite the sight to pursue. Chris and I were going to look directly at this because we don't want to miss this moment, Chris. No. I mean, 20 years. Hopefully you and I, we can do this again August 8th.
Yep, and take a look.
2024.
And I'm sure there are people right now already counting down.
As quickly as it began, the rare phenomenon faded, but would forever create a lasting memory.
Something I'll remember for the rest of my life.
We're getting used to the hot summers in the DMV, but not like this year when June, July, and August all saw triple-digit heat. Meteorologist Scott Sumner and Brittany Ward break down this year's summer statistics.
During the meteorological summer of 2024, notable records were tied or broken, some of which involved 100-degree heat.
It's a sauna out here.
The hottest stretch of temperatures in the district lasted 4 days, where daytime highs jumped into the triple digits. On July 16th, we recorded a high of 104 degrees, and people who were visiting the district say this is a different type of heat.
It's humid where we are, and this is just like heat. Yeah, I feel like the sun is right on top of me.
With multiple heat waves across the DMV, a first-time D.C. resident says this heat was uncomfortable.
It's a little bit unbearable, different kind of heat. It's much more humid here.
No questions that July 16th was a hot day, but this day also tied the third highest temperature in the nation's capital. In fact, the last time D.C. reached 104 degrees was in 2012, 12 years ago.
It's too hot. It's not so much just the heat, it's the humidity on top of it. And the air quality doesn't make it easy to exercise outside.
Altogether, 15 heat emergencies were issued for the nation's capital. These are put in place when the National Weather Service forecasts an air temp or heat index that is 95 degrees or greater. And 4 extended heat emergencies were issued for D.C. Now, these are put in place under 3 circumstances. 1, the National Weather Service forecast an overnight heat index of 80 degrees or higher. 2, the forecast calls for a daytime heat index of 95 degrees or higher for 4 or more days. And finally, the National Weather Service issued an excessive heat warning.
Coming up on the 2024, the year in weather, the first half of the year was memorable, but the second half brought multiple named tropical systems and a tornado outbreak. My co-host, meteorologist Jackie Layer, has the details next.
Welcome back to DC News Now's Weather Special 2024, the year in weather. I'm meteorologist Jackie Layer. In the world of weather, there are times when events that seem unlikely on paper that can align to create a significant weather event. Our next story was one of the most impactful tornado outbreaks that Maryland has seen in years.
First thing that came to my mind was, we got to get on air. We have to let the people know, especially in Montgomery County, hey, there's a possible tornado on the ground.
It almost gives you a pit in your stomach because you know that as much as we're trying to get people prepared and giving out those alerts and saying, hey, get into your safe space, trying to get everybody safe, there's probably going to be some people still in the path that aren't quite prepared.
We were showing the viewers in real time what was happening as that tornado was on the ground and moving across Montgomery County.
Nobody prepares for 22 tornado warnings. We prepare for like 1 or 2 as we're going through our training for preseason of the severe weather season. And now me looking back, okay, we need to prepare for that possibility.
Wednesday, June 5th started as a quiet but hot and muggy late spring day in the DMV. But things quickly changed.
That warm front, we always have to watch it here locally. That's where we will get some sort of, if we do get tornadoes, that's where they usually derive from.
Around late afternoon, we had our first tornado warning come in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, thinking that it was just going to be maybe 1 or 2 tornado warnings.
I kind of had this feeling. I thought, okay, this is not over. It's far from over. And then it just kept going, and we got multiple tornadoes for hours and hours on end.
But later, things began to blow up.
We're watching and still watching this tornado warning making its way across Baltimore County.
Then we saw on the traffic cameras a tornado moving through Montgomery County.
All the tornadoes that were on the ground from the afternoon through the evening, 13 of them, no injuries, or I said no fatalities, and very few injuries. So people certainly were watching.
Seeing how many cars were on 270 that night and all the brake lights, I was really praying to God that, you know, these people are able to not get hit by this tornado.
You just don't see something like that around here.
After being on air for 8 hours straight for the first tornado outbreak this area has seen in decades, the last tornado warning was finally issued that Wednesday night, and our weather team packed up and headed home to get some sleep and prepare for the next day.
I woke up the next morning at my normal time, which is 2:30 in the morning, and I woke up to all of these messages, all of these warnings that had popped up.
Heading into the next day, the severe weather threat was not over as there was still some fuel in the atmosphere. Meteorologist Jackie Layer spent the following morning and afternoon covering severe thunderstorm warnings and another tornado warning.
That was the first tornado warning the following day. And yes, there was a piece of thought back in my mind that I was like, oh no, this is going to be very similar to the day before.
Chief Meteorologist Janessa Webb and meteorologist Brittany Ward headed to the scene to get a glimpse of the damage firsthand.
My soul talks about saving lives, right? That's our purpose as meteorologists. We don't go in this about the TV aspect. We go about human beings first. It had nothing to do about winning. It had to do with life-saving information and how could we not be on as this was transpiring.
A few days later, the National Weather Service sent out 4 different survey teams and confirmed 13 tornadoes touching down, ranging from EF0 to EF1, along with 22 tornado warnings issued by the National Weather Service, with 9 counties across West Virginia, Maryland, and Virginia being affected by this storm system. This tornado outbreak will be one for the history books.
Hurricanes are rapidly rotating storm systems and are among the most destructive weather phenomena. To understand what is happening in those storms, scientists are using what are called sail drones. DC News Now meteorologist Scott Sumner gives us a closer look.
Great thing about sail drones is they use solar power to power all their onboard sensors.
Groups and companies around the world, including NOAA and Sail Drones Incorporated, use sail drones in locations that have the highest probability of hurricane activity. Those include the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico, and Atlantic Ocean. Sail drones monitor the ocean and the atmosphere at the same time, and that allows us to calculate the exchanges of heat and momentum taking place, and to understand how hurricanes intensify.
We understand the importance of making these observations and getting these measurements for NOAA.
This video was captured from a sail drone during Hurricane Sam in the Atlantic near Puerto Rico in 2021. The sail drone started out in the calm before the storm. Then as winds and the seas increased, we could see the maximum strength of a Category 4 hurricane. This is all before the calm weather returns. Oceanographer Greg Foltz with NOAA says sail drones are a way to get valuable data that could help scientists and meteorologists understand how hurricanes interact with the ocean.
So that's where sail drone data can be useful, is it hopefully help us understand and predict rapid intensification better. But rapid intensification refers to when a hurricane increases its maximum wind speed in 24 hours or less.
Back in early August, the remnants of Debbie brought lots of flooding and damage to the DMV for more than 12 hours. Meteorologist Brittany Ward and I break down that day. DC, go to your safe place right now, your safe spot, and make sure that you're putting as many, walls between you and the outside as possible.
If you're just now tuning in, the National Weather Service just issued a tornado warning for Washington, D.C.
Debbie became a Category 1 storm, the second named hurricane of the Atlantic hurricane season, as it made landfall along the Big Bend region of Florida. Then Debbie made a second landfall in South Carolina as a tropical storm. At the time Debbie moved through the DMV, it weakened into a post-tropical cyclone, but it still packed a punch and brought multiple impacts to the DMV.
As well as those gusty winds, those heavier downpours. Yeah. And Jackie, this is all thanks to the leftovers of Debbie. Slowly, the center of it looks like it's still making its way into the eastern panhandle of West Virginia.
Yeah,
so
the westernmost parts of our area under that circulation associated with what is the remnants of Debbie. So we have that tropical moisture working its way across our area, and then when you factor in that changing wind direction with height, that's when you get that circulation. And we've been talking about velocity all morning long. It was a busy weather day across the area as 20 tornado warnings were issued. Out of the 20 warnings, the National Weather Service confirmed 3 tornadoes from Debbie. 2 of them were in Virginia and 1 was recorded in West Virginia. According to the enhanced Fujita scale, the highest ranked tornado that day was an EF1 with sustained winds up to 100 miles per hour. That tornado was recorded in Virginia and was on the ground for about 11 minutes that Thursday night.
Most likely with that tropical system, that influence along with the air mass that was in place played a factor into that severe weather during that stretch that we did see.
well, not only did we deal with tornadoes from the remnants of Debbie, but flooding was a big deal, especially during that Friday morning commute.
Yeah, and in this spot that we're standing here, right along Dock Street in Annapolis, that water from the harbor came right up here and ran right along some of these storefronts here as Debbie rolled through.
We get a fair amount of flooding here. We get a lot of nuisance flooding just from high tides. But when a storm such as Debbie comes through town, we get a couple of feet of water, and that wreaks havoc with the traffic patterns. Some of the roads need to be closed, and then some of these shops here, they've got to put sandbags up.
We spoke with a coastal hazards oceanographer from NOAA, Annalise Keeney. She explains how flooding can have a huge impact on businesses across the DMV, especially our coastal communities.
I sympathize with the community just because flooding impacts a lot. It makes it so that businesses don't have the foot traffic that they might have, or that there's streets that are blocked off that can't be accessed.
That morning, the National Weather Service issued 16 flash flood warnings across the area, with 5 of those warnings reported in the greater DC area.
In the DC area, like you said, it was pretty sloppy that morning as Debbie rolled on through. A lot of spots picked up a quick 2 to 3 inches of rain just from a narrow band that basically extended through the city right on down towards 95, towards the Fredericksburg area, and then back north into Baltimore.
Altogether, the greater DC area received 2 to 3 inches of rainfall. The official report from Reagan National Airport was more than 2 3/4 of an inch. At the time that Debbie moved through, a few locations were considered under drought conditions, and thankfully Debbie's rainfall alleviated that. The highest rainfall we saw was up to 9 inches of rain, and that was reported in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia.
In Annapolis, I'm meteorologist Brittany Ward.
And I'm meteorologist Jackie Layer. In a year where the tropical season started off slow, well, 2024 changed that narrative. Just a few weeks in, we had our second named storm, Beryl. It became a major hurricane, and it broke many records. Our meteorologist Scott Sumner has more.
Beryl was a deadly and destructive tropical cyclone that impacted parts of the Caribbean, the Yucatan Peninsula, and the Gulf Coast of the United States in 2024. Over its long trek across the Atlantic, Beryl broke many meteorological records for the months of June and July. Hurricane specialists knew something was unique about this storm when Beryl became the easternmost hurricane to form in the tropical Atlantic in June. Additionally, it became the earliest Category 4 hurricane and the strongest to develop within the main development region of the Atlantic before the month of July, surpassing the previous record set by Hurricane Dennis in 2005. It later became the earliest Category 5 hurricane on record, surpassing that record set by Hurricane Emily in 2005 as well. Beryl intensified from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane in only 42 hours, as only 6 other Atlantic storms are known to have achieved this rate of intensification. Tracking thousands of miles across multiple bodies of water, Beryl finally reached the U.S. Gulf Coast, making landfall as a Category 1 hurricane near Matagorda, Texas on July 8th. The amount of tornado warnings put out by the National Weather Service in Texas was a staggering 113 on July 8th, the most for a single day in July, surpassing the 67 issued in 2005 for Hurricane Cindy. When Beryl reached the DMV, it had lost the highest winds of the storm, but brought some decent rain to the region. As seen here, storm clouds moved in, umbrellas were up, and folks visiting the National Mall in D.C. had to take shelter from the on and off downpours. Not too far away in Maryland, the rain came down hard, creating ponding on the roads, and near smaller streams and creeks, water levels rose quickly, keeping cars half submerged if they dare try to cross the flooded road.
Finally, this year we experienced extremely dry conditions which impacted various regions of the DMV, leaving some areas grappling with a drought. Chief Meteorologist Janessa Webb will be back to wrap things up. You're watching DC News Now Weather Special 2024, the year in weather.
Extreme heat wasn't the only impact across the region this summer, as a severe drought developed soon after the high temperatures. Meteorologists Damon Matson and Jackie Layer show how people in the DMV, mainly farmers, dealt with the drought.
This summer was brutal not only because of the heat we dealt with, but also the extremely dry conditions, which quickly led to a drought.
Yeah, after a wet spring, we had several weeks of little to no rain that combined with triple-digit temperatures, drying up the soil and turning everything brown.
When we planted, it was like the Sahara Desert out in the fields. It was so dry.
From the beginning of June to the end of July, western portions of the DMV went from no drought to severe and even extreme drought.
Consecutive dry weeks and excessive heat took their toll on everyone, but it hit farmers like Orr's Farm Market in Martinsburg, West Virginia, exceptionally hard. We caught up with Don Orr and Katie Orr Dove. Don keeps up with the field operations of the farm and noticed how the heat took a toll on more than just the crops.
We did notice an increase in equipment failure this year due to the heat. So there was a lot more maintenance to do overall through the summer.
Katie Orr Dove runs the retail side of the farm and noticed how the drought impacted her daily operations.
But it was extremely difficult and stressful for me to tell people when things were going to be right, because everything was just wacky, like it just wasn't coming in at the same time that people were used to. It came in like 2 weeks early and then it would be gone in like a week, each crop.
Many crops struggled, so extra steps and effort were needed to keep the crops growing and healthy.
The other issue that we found, there's 2 other things that kind of affected us, would be our sweet corn. Our sweet corn did not mature, just didn't get enough rain. And then we had a couple fields of pumpkins that also didn't mature without any rain. We did have to hand water our pumpkins for about 2 months. So about every other day, we were hand watering everything with a tank and a sprayer.
And give them some acreage on that, Don.
So we grow about 30 acres of pumpkins. And in our main area, the area that didn't take is about 5 acres that we didn't get to mature. And then we grow about 1.5 acres of sweet corn, and then right around 200 acres of peaches.
Tropical rain in August and consecutive soggy days in September brought some relief, but it wasn't enough to completely erase the drought. Those at Orr's are hopeful that conditions continue to improve into next year.
Blanketed snow would be awesome if we could get some nice snowstorms that last more than a day. That also helps the crop. But yeah, we need some rain still this winter to bring our water tables up.
Despite the difficulties of the drought, Orr's Farmers Market said they appreciate the support of their customers through the tough weather conditions, and they will continue to be there with all the other local farmers providing produce and experiences for families no matter what Mother Nature brings.
With dramatic shifts and unexpected patterns that have kept us on our toes, what a weather year it has been. Thanks for joining us for our Weather Special 2024, the Year in Weather. From all of us from our weather department, we hope you and your family have a happy and safe holiday season.